I came home from my double shift to find my family had vanished, with everything I owned, leaving me $47 and a car with a cracked windshield. 9 years later, I was worth $2.8 million. And when they crawled back begging for money, I had them arrested by the FBI instead. But what you're about to hear isn't just a revenge story. It's how I discovered my own family were professional criminals, and how I used that knowledge to destroy them so completely that federal judges called their actions reprehensible and deeply disturbing. By the end of the story, you'll understand why sometimes the people who hurt you the most do the biggest favor of your life. I am Avery Martinez, and I built a $2.8 million business from literal garbage after my family threw me away like trash. Let me take you back to the moment my world ended. Picture this. I'm 17, exhausted from pulling a double at Murphy's Diner, still smelling like grease and coffee. I turn onto my street expecting to collapse into bed. Instead, I see strangers loading our entire life into a U-Haul truck. That's when I spot my mother wrapping our dishes like it's just another Tuesday. My brother Jake carrying out my dead grandmother's rocking chair, the one piece of furniture I'd claimed when she passed. That's the moment I knew they weren't coming back. What's going on? My voice cracks like I'm still 12. My mother looks up like I've caught her stealing, which honestly I had. Avery, we need to talk. But what she said next would haunt me every single day for 9 years, until I became successful enough to make them pay in ways they never imagined. You're 17 now, old enough to figure things out on your own. We can't afford to keep supporting you anymore. I'm waiting for the punchline. This has to be some twisted joke. Jake won't even look at me. We're starting fresh in Denver. Clean slate, you know? But what about Jake? He's only 19. My mother and Jake exchange a look that makes my stomach drop. Jake understands the family business, my father says carefully. He's useful to our operations. You've always asked too many questions about where our money comes from. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Jake finally speaks up, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. Some people are meant to be part of the team, and some people are meant to stay out of the way. Clean slate. Without me. My father walks out carrying a cardboard box, sees me, and actually sighs, like my existence is personally inconvenient to him. Here, he says, shoving crumpled bills into my hand. That should get you started. $47. To start a life. What I didn't know then was that $47 wasn't just cruel, it was calculated. They'd left me exactly enough to prevent it from looking like total abandonment on paper. I watched that U-Haul disappear around the corner, taking everything I'd ever known. They left me standing in our driveway with a garbage bag of clothes, $47, and keys to a Honda with 200,000 miles. What they didn't know was that this moment, this complete betrayal, would eventually make me rich enough to buy and sell them like property. The first 3 days, I watched that $47 disappear into gas and gas station food. By day 4, I was choosing between eating and staying warm. The first night, I slept in my car in Murphy's parking lot. The vinyl seats jabbed into my ribs, but that physical pain was nothing compared to the crater in my chest where my family used to be. I woke up every few hours, not from the cold, but from nightmares of walking into that empty house over and over again. At 3 a.m., someone tapped my window. My heart exploded. Was this how homeless kids got murdered? But it was Mrs. Rodriguez, our elderly neighbor, holding hot coffee and looking heartbroken. Mija, where did your family go? I couldn't speak. I just pointed at our house with its for rent sign already stabbed into the front yard. She understood instantly. Mrs. Rodriguez knew abandonment. Her own children had moved to California and never called. You come with me. No child sleeps in a car. She fed me eggs and toast while I sobbed into my plate. This woman, who barely knew me, showed more kindness in one morning than my family had in months. Sometimes I talked to myself in the car. I confessed to her through tears. Just to remember what conversation feels like. Is that crazy? Mrs. Rodriguez held my hand. No, Mija. That's surviving. But what she told me next was the first clue that this abandonment was far more calculated than I'd realized. Your family, they pack very quiet yesterday. But I see something strange. They loading boxes into different truck first. Like they hiding things before Denver. My blood turned to ice water. They'd been planning this longer than one night. Maybe longer than I wanted to imagine. Mrs. Rodriguez couldn't keep me forever, though. I needed a real plan. Carmen, my manager at Murphy's, was a steel-tough woman who'd raised 3 kids alone. When she found out what happened, she didn't offer pity. She offered something better. You work hard, you eat. Work harder, you survive. But first, we call police. Police? 17 is still minor. What they did, that's abandonment. That's crime. But here's the twist that still makes my skin crawl. That emancipation letter wasn't hastily written. It was notarized 2 weeks earlier. They'd been planning my abandonment while I was making them breakfast every morning. But when officers came, they barely wrote a report. My parents had left a note claiming I was emancipated and choosing independence. Legal enough to make cops shrug and leave. That's when I realized I was completely, utterly alone. But what I didn't realize was that being abandoned would teach me something my family never could: how to survive anything. I picked up a second job at a gas station, working graveyard shifts after my diner doubles. 18 hours a day on my feet, surviving on vending machine coffee and whatever expired sandwiches I could take home. The loneliness was suffocating some nights. Exhaustion would hit so hard I'd collapse and sleep for 14 hours straight. But the breakthrough that would eventually destroy my family came from the most unexpected place. I picked up occasional shifts at Murphy's helping with inventory, which is when I discovered their secondary market for cosmetically imperfect produce. Behind the store, crates of perfectly good fruit sat waiting for wholesale buyers, bruised apples destined for juice companies, soft peaches headed to bakeries, overripe berries bound for processing plants. This wasn't waste, it was a legitimate business I'd never known existed. What grocery customers rejected for being less than perfect, food processors paid good money for. At first, I convinced the wholesale manager to let me buy small quantities at their bulk prices, 20 pounds of perfectly good peaches for what 2 pounds would cost retail. The opportunity burned brighter than shame, and hunger burned worse than pride. My grandmother had taught me to make jam before she died. Her kitchen always smelled like sugar and berries and unconditional love. Maybe I could recreate that magic from these imperfect treasures. My first weeks were disaster after disaster. I'd faint from exhaustion mid-batch, once waking up on my kitchen floor at 3 a.m. with burned sugar smoking around me. My first batch was disaster. Burned sugar, runny mess, way too sweet. But Carmen tried it anyway. Tastes like hope, she said. Keep trying. Maybe they were right to leave me. I whispered to myself some nights, staring at another failed batch. The self-doubt felt heavier than the exhaustion.
So I did.
Every failure taught me something. Every small success built confidence. I taught myself everything from library books I'd check out during my one free hour between jobs. Within 6 months, I had a system that turned cosmetically imperfect fruit into liquid gold. My first farmer's market was a disaster, sold 3 jars in 8 hours. I sat there watching successful vendors count hundreds while I made $12. That night, I seriously considered quitting everything. But the next Saturday, I tried again. Customers loved the story, seeing value in what others considered imperfect, transforming overlooked fruit into something beautiful. It felt like a metaphor for my entire existence. Some nights, I'd sit outside the closed library, the only free place to study and escape the car that had become my world. I cried there once, just from the relief of being somewhere that felt safe. But 3 months in, I hit true rock bottom. My car broke down completely. Alternator dead. $300 towing fee I couldn't afford. That night in the 24-hour laundromat, surrounded by the smell of cheap detergent and other people's lives spinning in circles, I pulled out a quarter and stared at the payphone on the wall. Child Services was just 3 numbers away. I sat there for 2 hours, quarter burning in my palm, practicing how I'd admit defeat. I'm 17, homeless, and I can't do this alone. The shame was suffocating, but I couldn't dial. Not because I was brave, because giving up felt like proving they were right about me. But what happened next would accelerate everything beyond my wildest dreams. A food blogger discovered my booth. "This is incredible," she said, buying 6 jars. "Can I write about you?" Rags to Riches with Jam was supposed to be a feel-good local interest piece. Instead, it went viral in ways that changed everything overnight. My phone crashed from notification overload. I went to bed with 200 orders and woke up to 2,000. Local news trucks parked outside my apartment by noon. Orders flooded in faster than I could process them. My phone rang constantly with wholesale inquiries. Within 6 months, I'd landed my first major grocery chain contract. But even as success grew, that crumpled note they'd left haunted me. "You'll figure it out." It became both my daily motivation and my silent weapon, waiting for the right moment. By 25, Bitter and Sweet Company was worth $2.8 million and growing explosively. 37 employees, most of them people like me, foster kids, recovering addicts, people rebuilding from nothing. When Food and Wine featured me in their 30 Under 30 issue, I felt untouchable. There I was in a crisp chef's coat, surrounded by my preserve empire, looking like I belonged in that success. Success didn't erase those scars. Every milestone reminded me of the family who'd bet against me surviving at all. That magazine feature made me nationally searchable. My full name, my company's worth, even my location, all public record for anyone from my past to find. After years of hiding, being visible felt terrifying. I'd check my locks twice every night, wondering if success had made me a target. I posted the article on social media. Sometimes the sweetest success comes from the sourest beginnings. 50,000 likes. Thousands of comments from people sharing abandonment stories. For 3 perfect days, I basked in validation and accomplishment. For the first time in years, I felt safe, until the past found me again. Then my phone buzzed with a notification that made my hands shake uncontrollably. But before I tell you what that message said, you need to understand something about revenge. Real revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making someone face consequences they thought they'd never pay. And my family was about to learn that lesson in the most expensive way. Life had finally started to steady. But then, out of nowhere, a notification popped up on Facebook. A name I hadn't seen in nearly a decade. Avery Martinez. "Hey sis. Saw your article in Food and Wine. So proud of you. We always knew you'd do something amazing. Families should stick together. Miss you so much." The audacity was breathtaking. Families should stick together? From people who'd literally driven away and left me homeless. I screenshot everything immediately. Survival instinct telling me to document this insanity. 2 days later, message from my mother. "We've been looking for you for years. So sorry about how things ended. We thought it would be better for you to start fresh. Never stopped loving you." The lies were so polished they almost sounded believable. Looking for me for years, but my business was public record. I'd been in newspapers, had a website with my face on it. Then came the third message, dropping all pretense. Dad had heart attack. Medical bills overwhelming. About to lose the house. You've done so well. Maybe you could help family out. There it was. The real reason for their sudden familial affection. Reading their messages brought back every night I'd cried myself to sleep in that car. Every morning I'd woken up wondering if anyone would ever choose to love me again. Part of me, that broken 17-year-old, still craved their approval. Part of me, that abandoned 17-year-old, wanted to help. But the stronger part, the woman who'd built something from nothing, recognized exactly what this was. A con job. I agreed to meet them, but not because I wanted reconciliation. I needed them to see who I'd become without them. And honestly, I was curious about who they'd become too. The coffee shop was neutral territory. When they walked in, I barely recognized them. My father looked worn down by life, 20 pounds heavier and graying. My mother had deep lines around her eyes and clothes from discount racks. Jake looked like he'd aged 15 years. Something desperate and calculating in his eyes made my skin crawl. But their faces lit up when they saw my tailored blazer and designer boots. "Avery, look at you." My mother tried hugging me. I stayed rigid as stone. Business must be doing incredible, Jake said, eyeing my outfit like he was calculating its retail value. That's a nice watch. What's the profit margin on those preserves? They asked about my company with that hungry quality people get when they want something. How many employees? Annual revenue? Do I own the buildings? Finally, my father delivered his rehearsed performance. What we did when you were 17 was wrong, he said in that practiced tone people use for scripted apologies. But we were in a bad financial place. Your mother was struggling with depression. We thought you'd be better off without us holding you back. I stood up so fast my chair scraped across the floor. You thought I'd be better off homeless? Sleeping in a car? Eating from dumpsters? Working 2 jobs while secretly living in Murphy's parking lot because I had nowhere else to go. My voice carried across the coffee shop, but I didn't care. You packed up our entire life while I was at work and left me $47. That's not setting me free. That's abandonment. Jake tried interrupting. We know we messed up, but no. You don't get to rewrite history now that I'm successful. You don't get to pretend this was some gift. I pulled out that crumpled note from my wallet, the one I'd carried for 9 years like a talisman. You'll figure it out, I read aloud. Remember writing this? Because I never forgot it. I threw a 20 on the table, half my original inheritance, and walked out. But they weren't done. And what happened next pushed me to do things I never thought myself capable of. Over 2 weeks, messages escalated from guilt to manipulation to outright emotional terrorism. Texts, emails, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. They found every platform I existed on. We could lose everything, Avery. Don't you care about family? Your grandmother would be ashamed of how selfish you've become. We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. You owe us something. When I blocked them, they created new accounts. When I changed my phone number, they somehow got the new one. When I ignored emails, they started showing up at my commercial kitchen. That's when I hired a lawyer and discovered something that would fuel my revenge for months. But first, they crossed a line that made everything personal. Carmen called me crying. Carmen never cried about anything. Some people came to my house today, said they were your family. They took pictures of my car, my house. They knew about my grandchildren, where I work. Her voice cracked. They said if you don't help them, everyone would know what kind of ungrateful daughter you really are. They'd threaten the woman who saved me. The woman who'd been more mother to me than my biological one ever was. That's when clarity hit like ice water. I had resources now, real power, and I was going to use every bit of it. Sarah Chin specialized in high-stakes cases and took no prisoners. This is harassment and stalking, she said, scanning their message avalanche. But their behavior feels professional, like they've done this before. Within 48 hours, her investigator uncovered the truth. A criminal enterprise spanning 3 states and 5 years. Tax evasion, unemployment fraud, insurance scams, GoFundMe fraud. They weren't just bad family. This was their profession. The fake medical emergency that got money from relatives? They've used identical sob stories on 6 different families, Marcus explained. Your mother's cancer fundraising? Same scam, for different cities. Jake's business opportunities bilked investors out of over $100,000. Then he showed me something that made me physically sick, printed emails dated 14 months before they abandoned me. She's getting too curious about finances, my mother had written. 1 more year and she'll be 18. Then it won't matter legally. Every night I'd blamed myself dissolved into white-hot understanding. I hadn't been their daughter. I'd been a liability with an expiration date. I want to destroy them, I told Sarah, hands shaking. What do you actually want to achieve? She asked calmly. I want them stopped. Forever. Then we use the justice system, not public humiliation. We have enough for criminal charges across multiple jurisdictions. Carmen was blunt when I called her. Becoming like them won't heal what they did to you. You've built something beautiful. Don't let their poison change who you've become. My therapist was even more direct. Acting on revenge fantasies can re-traumatize you. You've built your identity separate from them. Don't let them define your actions now. It took everything in me, but I listened. We compiled evidence into files and delivered them to 6 authorities: IRS, FBI, financial crimes, district attorneys in every relevant state. No social media campaigns. No public shaming. Just methodical, legal consequences. 3 months later, Sarah called with the news. Jake was arrested this morning. Your mother and stepfather yesterday. Federal charges, state charges. The DA says they're looking at significant prison time. I sat in my kitchen and felt something unexpected. Peace. Not hollow satisfaction, but genuine peace knowing they couldn't hurt anyone else. When Carmen came over that evening, she asked, "How do you feel?" Like I finally broke the cycle. They taught me that family hurts each other, uses each other. But choosing justice over revenge? That's me choosing to be better. The food and wine feature came out the next month. When the reporter asked about overcoming family abandonment, I said, "Success isn't about proving your worth to people who couldn't see it. It's about building a life so full of genuine relationships that their absence stops mattering." I never mentioned the criminal charges. That wasn't my story to tell anymore. It was the justice system's. My story was about rising above, not dragging others down. And that felt like the truest victory of all. The legal process unfolded methodically over 6 months. Sarah kept me informed as the investigation expanded. Other victims came forward, including my father's brother and 3 families who'd experienced identical manipulation tactics. What started as harassment against me had uncovered a much larger pattern of financial crimes. I was on the phone with Sarah when the arrests happened. "FBI is executing warrants this morning," she said quietly. I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness watching the news coverage. Relief that they couldn't hurt anyone else. Sadness for the family I'd once hoped we could be. Carmen sat with me as we watched the local news report. "How do you feel?" she asked as footage showed agents carrying boxes of evidence from their house. "Empty," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel, I don't know, vindicated? But mostly I just feel tired." "That's normal," Carmen said, squeezing my hand. "Closure isn't always what we expect it to be." The charges were extensive: tax evasion, unemployment fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy. The pattern of financial crimes stretched back years. During the 3-week trial, I testified about the abandonment and subsequent harassment, but the prosecution's case was built on financial evidence, not personal grievances. "They left me $47 and a broken car," I testified, my voice steady. Within 3 days, I was choosing between gas money and food. The defense attorney tried attacking my credibility, but I stuck to the facts. This wasn't about revenge. It was about establishing a pattern of behavior. The federal judge was stern during sentencing. The defendants systematically exploited trust for financial gain, showing a calculated pattern that escalated over years. The court is concerned by their apparent lack of genuine understanding of the harm they've caused. My father received 15 years. My mother got 12. Jake received 8 years plus probation. I felt no satisfaction watching them led away, just a profound sense that a difficult chapter was finally closing. During my victim impact statement, I looked at them one final time. "You taught me that families should show up for each other. You never showed up for me, but other people did. Carmen, Mrs. Rodriguez, my employees, they became my real family. I hope prison gives you time to understand the difference between using people and loving them." My mother was crying. For the first time in years, I felt something other than anger toward her. Pity, maybe. Or just sadness for what we'd all lost. After sentencing, reporters asked how I felt. "Justice isn't about revenge," I said. "It's about ensuring people face appropriate consequences for their actions. I hope they use this time to reflect on the choices that brought them here." 6 months later, I received a letter from my mother in federal prison. "Leaving you was the biggest mistake of our lives," she wrote. "Not because of your success, because of who you became without us. You turned out better than we ever deserved." I read the entire letter this time. It didn't change anything, but it felt like something I needed to witness. Then I filed it away. Some apologies are important to receive, even when forgiveness isn't possible. Last month, Carmen and I opened our third production facility. At the ribbon cutting, she said, "Family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up when you're broken and helps you build something beautiful." I thought about that terrified 17-year-old sleeping in Murphy's parking lot. She couldn't have imagined this. 62 employees, national expansion, Harvard speaking invitations. But the real victory isn't the money or recognition. It's the chosen family surrounding me. Carmen, Sarah, Mrs. Rodriguez, employees who've become siblings. People who celebrate victories instead of trying to profit from them. Sometimes abandonment is redirection towards something better. Their rejection forced me to discover my own strength and find people who actually deserve my trust. If you've been thrown away by people who claim to love you, remember this. Their actions reflect their limitations, not your worth. Use their absence as space to build relationships with people who show up consistently. They left me $47 to start over. Today, I employ people and support their families. That's the difference between destruction and creation. The view from here isn't about revenge. It's about purpose. And that makes all the difference. Want more stories like this? Subscribe for tales of resilience, revenge, and rising above. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.